The airport was chaos that morning. People dragging luggage like tired dogs, kids crying, the loudspeaker echoing names no one could hear clearly. The scent of burnt coffee and cheap perfume floated through the terminal like a weary ghost. Isabella Morales, 33, strode through the crowd with calm precision. Her Navy pilot's uniform was crisp, her boots gleaming, her hair neatly tied in a bun. She looked every bit the professional except for one detail. She was walking without her captain's stripes. They were in her bag. Her airline, let's call it Blue Sky Airways, had just promoted her to captain 3 days ago. It had been a long time coming. 10 years of flight hours, endless training, the exhausting dance of proving herself twice as competent just to be seen as equal. Being a Latina woman in commercial aviation wasn't exactly a walk in the clouds. Today was supposed to be her first flight as captain. She'd kept it quiet. She wanted to walk into the cockpit and surprise her crew herself. But fate had a sense of humor. At gate 27, a boarding line had already formed. Isabella slipped into it, pulling her carry-on behind her. Her ID badge was tucked out of sight. She wanted to experience her own flight from the passenger side just once. In front of her, a businessman in a wrinkled suit sighed dramatically as he checked his watch. Behind her, an elderly woman chatted with her husband in Spanish about how expensive bottled water was. Then the flight attendant appeared. "Good morning, everyone," the woman chirped with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We'll begin boarding passengers by group. Please have your boarding pass and ID ready." Her name tag read T. Henderson. She was blonde, polished, and visibly stressed. When Isabella reached the gate scanner, she smiled politely. "Good morning." Henderson barely looked up. "We're still boarding first class and priority passengers. Please step aside." "Oh, I'm not boarding as a passenger," Isabella began. But the attendant's hand shot up, palm out. "Ma'am, please. I've got a full flight to get through. You can wait at the back, okay? We'll call your group soon." The tone wasn't rude, just dismissive. But that small flick of the wrist, the way she said "wait at the back," hit something raw. Isabella hesitated. Her instinct said to correct her, to say who she was, but her pride whispered, "Not yet." She nodded silently, stepping aside. Behind her, a man in a pilot's uniform breezed through the gate without a word of challenge. Henderson's smile switched on instantly. "Morning, Captain," she said brightly. He nodded and kept walking. Isabella's fingers tightened around the handle of her bag. Minutes later, Henderson glanced over and muttered to another attendant, loud enough for Isabella to hear, "Some people just don't get how boarding groups work." The other woman laughed politely. Isabella turned her face away. She'd faced worse. Much worse. But after all those years, flying through turbulence, navigating emergency descents, studying aerodynamics till midnight, it still stung to be dismissed like that. When boarding finished, Isabella waited until the last passengers entered the jet bridge. Then she stepped forward. Henderson sighed. "Group 5 now, ma'am. Please make sure you find space for your—" "I'm not in Group 5. Isabella's voice was calm, but her eyes were steady. "Oh." Henderson snapped, scanning her pass. "Then what?" Isabella reached into her bag. Out came her cap, navy, gleaming with the gold-trimmed stripes that marked command. She placed it on her head. Then she unclipped her ID badge, letting it swing forward. "Captain Isabella Morales." The attendant froze. "I believe I'm cleared for the cockpit," Isabella said, tone smooth as jet fuel. The silence between them was thick enough to choke on. Henderson's face went pale. "Why, you're the captain?" "I am," Isabella replied, voice steady but cool. "And thank you for making sure everyone waited their turn." She didn't smirk, didn't glare, just stepped past her with quiet grace. As Isabella entered the jet bridge, she heard the murmured whispers behind her. "Oh my God, she's the pilot? I thought she was. She looks so young." The cabin crew stiffened when she entered the plane. The first officer, Michael Grant, turned from his seat, blinking. "Captain Morales? You're early." "Apparently not early enough," she said dryly. "Let's run through pre-flight." Once the cockpit door closed, the noise of the cabin faded into a hum. Her hands moved through the checklist like clockwork. The switches, dials, and instruments greeted her like old friends. This was her space. Thousands of feet above judgment, above hierarchy, above prejudice. But her heart was still beating too fast. That one phrase, Wait at the back, echoed in her skull. She took a breath, steadying herself. Today was her first flight as captain. And nothing, not even a gate attendant's casual bias, was going to cloud that sky. When the cabin door sealed and the engines began their low growl, Isabella's voice came through the intercom for the first time. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Morales speaking. Welcome aboard Flight 842 to Chicago. We're expecting smooth skies today and an on-time arrival. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight. There was a pause. A ripple of surprise went through the cabin as passengers turned to look at each other. A Latina woman. A captain. Meanwhile, at the front of the plane, T. Henderson's face flushed crimson. She could feel the eyes of her crew on her. The same woman she'd told to wait at the back was now in command of the entire flight. She swallowed hard, adjusting her scarf, pretending to be busy with the safety demonstration cards. But she knew. Everyone knew. And the flight hadn't even taken off yet. The seatbelt signs blinked off, and the plane hummed peacefully above the clouds. Sunlight bathed the cabin in a soft glow as passengers settled in, scrolling through phones and flipping open magazines. From the cockpit, the horizon stretched endlessly, a cotton sea beneath an infinite blue. For Captain Isabella Morales, this was heaven. Her hands rested lightly on the controls, the subtle vibration of the engines a rhythm she knew by heart. Every pilot had their own kind of prayer, and hers was simple. Let every takeoff be steady and every landing true. Her first officer, Michael Grant, was chatting beside her, double-checking the flight path. So, he said with a grin, word spreads fast. The crew didn't know you were taking command today. I wanted it that way, Isabella replied, eyes focused on the instrument panel. Wanted to earn the reaction midair, not on paper. Michael chuckled. Well, you got a reaction all right. Poor Henderson looks like she saw a ghost. Isabella gave a small, non-committal smile. She'll learn. We all do. In the cabin, flight attendant Tara Henderson couldn't stop replaying the scene at the gate. She told the captain to wait at the back. He felt like an idiot. Worse, she felt exposed. The whispers hadn't died down. A few passengers had even congratulated Isabella on the announcement, one man muttering, about time they let someone like her fly. Tara poured coffee for a passenger, her hand trembling slightly. Cream or sugar? Both, please, the woman said, then lowered her voice. She sounds confident. That's rare, huh? Tara smiled weakly. Yes, ma'am. She's very capable. But beneath that polite tone was something else. Guilt, yes, but also curiosity. Tara had never served under a female captain before, let alone a Latina one. And she couldn't shake the shame that her first instinct had been to assume Isabella was a passenger, not the pilot. As the hours passed, the flight continued smoothly until the first beep. A low, insistent tone filled the cockpit. Isabella's fingers moved instantly. Pressure warning light, she said. Michael checked the display. Yep. Forward cargo hold sensor. Could be a faulty read, Isabella murmured, running diagnostics. Let's confirm cabin integrity. I'll radio maintenance. Her voice remained perfectly calm. Too calm, perhaps. She trained herself never to let tension reach her tone. Passengers could sense fear even through metal walls. A second beep followed. Then the aircraft shuddered slightly. Michael frowned. That's real turbulence. Fasten seatbelt sign on, Isabella said immediately, flipping the switch. Cabin crew, take your seats. Tara had just finished handing out a tray when the lights flicked and the fasten seatbelt chime sounded. She caught herself on the seat back. Ladies and gentlemen, she began through the intercom, please return to your seats and secure your... The plane jolted violently, cutting her off. A cup of coffee flew from a tray, splattering across the aisle. A small child screamed. Someone gasped. Tara's heart pounded as she grabbed the intercom again. Cabin crew seats. She strapped in, knuckles white against the armrest. Her training kicked in. Turbulence happens, stay calm. But something about the way the engines shifted pitch made her stomach twist. Then she heard the captain's voice over the intercom. Steady. Grounded. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing some unexpected turbulence from a high-altitude jet stream. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We have everything under control. Her tone was calm, reassuring, almost soothing. And just like that, the cabin quieted. Even Tara felt her shoulders drop. In the cockpit, Isabella was assessing data fast. The turbulence wasn't the issue, it was the pressure drop indicator. A faulty valve maybe. But she wasn't taking chances. Diverting course to Kansas City, she said to air traffic control. Possible forward hold malfunction. No visible smoke or cabin issues, but requesting inspection. Copy, Captain Morales, came the reply. Cleared for diversion and descent to FL 220. Michael glanced at her. You sure you don't want to push through to Chicago? We're only 40 minutes out. Not risking it, she said. Safety first. Always. He nodded. Your call, Captain. Her call. The words echoed in her mind with a quiet satisfaction. For years she'd been First Officer Morales, always the second voice, the backup, the quiet strength behind the microphone. But now she was the one making the decisions and her crew trusted her completely. At least she hoped they did. In the cabin the air had settled but the tension lingered. A passenger muttered, "Why are we turning?" Another whispered, "Is it safe?" Tara clicked the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're making a brief course adjustment for safety inspection. Please remain seated and calm. We'll be on the ground shortly." She surprised herself with how confident she sounded. But truthfully it wasn't her calm, it was Isabella's. For the first time, Tara really heard the captain's voice. Not just the words but the authority beneath them, the kind that comes from competence, not ego. She realized with a sting of shame that she'd never imagined a Latina woman could command that tone. That wasn't Isabella's fault. That was her own blind spot. Back in the cockpit they began their descent through choppy skies. Tower, this is Blue Sky 842 descending from 30,000 feet, requesting immediate runway priority, Isabella said, clear and firm. Roger that, 842. You're cleared for runway 19L. Winds at 15 knots, visibility clear. Copy. Setting flaps 10, Isabella replied. Michael adjusted the controls, reading out checklists. Everything ran smooth. Professional. Coordinated. But inside, Isabella's heart raced. Not from fear, from pride. This was the moment she'd trained for, sacrificed for, endured every, "Are you sure you're in the right classroom?" And wow, didn't expect you to be a pilot for. She wasn't just flying a plane. She was proving a point every second that sky held her. At 2,000 feet the turbulence eased. The city glimmered below. Landing gear down, she said. 3 green lights, Michael confirmed. Speed stable. Wind manageable. My controls. Your controls. The plane touched down smooth, graceful. The kind of landing that made passengers clap. As they taxied to the gate, Isabella allowed herself a small smile. Her first emergency diversion. Her first command decision. Her first landing as captain. And every single person aboard had seen exactly what she was capable of. Even the one who told her to wait at the back. When the engines powered down and passengers began to disembark, Tara stood by the door helping them out with practice cheer. Thank you for flying with us. Have a good day. Then when Isabella emerged from the cockpit, Tara's throat tightened. The passengers paused, offering quiet nods, some even clapping as they passed her. Isabella smiled graciously, nodding in return. When the last traveler exited, Tara finally spoke. Captain Morales? Isabella turned, still calm. Yes. Tara's voice cracked slightly. I owe you an apology. For earlier. At the gate. Isabella studied her. For a moment, the hum of the cooling engines was the only sound. Then she said softly, Thank you, Miss Henderson. Apology accepted. Tara exhaled in relief. Isabella added, Just remember, people don't always look like what you expect. Especially not the ones leading you safely home. Then she walked away. 2 weeks passed since Flight 842's unexpected diversion, and Captain Isabella Morales's name had begun circulating through the company. Not because of the turbulence but because of how she handled it. No panic. No mistakes. No ego. Just a calm, precise decision that prevented a potential disaster. Blue Sky Airways Operations Office had filed her report under exemplary command conduct. That phrase followed her like a shadow now, echoing through meeting rooms and flight crew lounges. But for Isabella, life hadn't changed much. She still woke before dawn, ironed her uniform with military precision, and whispered a prayer before every takeoff. The sky didn't care who you were, gender, color, accent. It treated everyone equally. That was what she loved about it. The air had no prejudice. Still, she couldn't deny it felt good walking through the terminal now and seeing more nods of respect than sideways glances. Tara Henderson hadn't forgotten either. She'd replayed that day every night since. She told herself it had been an honest mistake. She hadn't meant to sound condescending, hadn't realized who Isabella was. But deep down she knew better. Her instinct that morning had been tinted by bias she'd never examined. The assumption that a Latina woman waiting at the gate couldn't possibly be a captain. It haunted her. She'd even looked up Isabella online. A few old interviews from her flight academy days popped up. One article headline stood out. First Latina pilot from her town takes to the skies. Tara read every word humbled. Isabella had grown up in El Paso, daughter of a mechanic and a schoolteacher. She'd worked double shifts to afford her first 40 flight hours. There was even a quote from her mother. She was born looking up at the sky. That line stuck with Tara for days. Then one morning at the crew center, Tara checked her schedule and froze. Flight 1014. Chicago to Denver. Captain Morales. Her stomach dropped. She half considered swapping shifts, but something inside her whispered, face it. When she arrived at the gate, she spotted Isabella immediately, standing beside the cockpit door, greeting crew with her signature calm smile. Morning, everyone, Isabella said. Let's make this flight a smooth one. Her tone was steady but not cold. When Tara stepped forward, she hesitated. Captain Morales, she began quietly. Isabella turned. Their eyes met for a beat. Good morning, Miss Henderson, she said simply, then extended her hand. Tara blinked, startled. He took it. Let's start fresh, Isabella said. We all have off days. A warmth flooded through Tara's chest. Gratitude, relief, maybe something close to admiration. Yes, Captain, she replied, voice trembling slightly. Once they were airborne, Tara couldn't help but watch Isabella in her element. The way she communicated with the crew, clear, kind, efficient. The way passengers calmed the moment her voice filled the cabin. Even the smallest things, her posture, her patience, the soft smile when turbulence hit again for a moment, it all radiated confidence. During cruise altitude, Tara stepped into the cockpit with a tray of coffee. Thought you could use this, she said. Perfect timing, Isabella said with a small smile. Thank you. Tara lingered for a second, then spoke softly. I read about you. Your story. Isabella looked up, one eyebrow raised. Oh. I didn't realize how hard you worked to get here. I'm sorry for underestimating that. Or you. For a moment, the hum of the instruments filled the silence. Then Isabella said, You're not the first to. And you won't be the last. What matters is what you do after you realize it. Tara nodded. I want to be better. About how I see people. How I talk to them. That's the best start you can make, Isabella said gently. Growth doesn't start with pride. It starts with humility. Tara smiled faintly. You sound like my therapist. Isabella chuckled. Then you have a good therapist. Hours later, as they began their descent into Denver, the tower warned of gusty crosswinds. Michael, the first officer, offered to take the landing, but Isabella shook her head. I've got it. The runway loomed ahead, shimmered by heat. She guided the aircraft through the shifting air, steady hands making constant micro-adjustments. Tara, seated at the jump seat, could feel the crosswind pushing them slightly sideways. Her heart raced, she knew how tricky this kind of landing could be. But Isabella's voice came calmly through the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, expect a firm landing today. That's by design. Safety first. And sure enough, when the wheels touched down, the landing was firm but clean. Controlled. Perfect. Applause again. The same ripple of relief and admiration. When the passengers disembarked, a little girl, maybe 8 or 9, tugged at her mother's sleeve and asked loudly, Mommy, the pilot was a lady? Her mom smiled. Honey. She sure was. The girl's eyes lit up. I want to fly planes too. Isabella overheard it. She knelt down slightly, catching the girl's eye. You can, she said warmly. The sky doesn't belong to anyone, it's yours too. The girl grinned. Really? Really, Isabella said. That small exchange melted something in Tara's chest. Because that was the kind of moment she'd never noticed before. The quiet impact, the invisible ripple. That evening, as the crew packed up in the hotel shuttle, Tara sat beside Isabella. "I was thinking," she said after a long silence, "about what you said. About growth." Isabella looked out the window, watching the sunset turn the clouds gold. I realized," Tara said, voice low, "that I used to judge people in little ways without even knowing it. I told myself it was just efficiency or standard procedure. But maybe it was fear. Or comfort. It's easy to respect someone who looks like the picture in your head. It's harder when they don't." Isabella nodded. "It's human. We all have blind spots. The question is, do we face them or fly around them forever?" Tara smiled faintly. "I think I've been circling mine for years." Isabella finally turned to her. "You just landed," she said softly. They both laughed quietly, the tension between them finally lifting into something like friendship. Months later, Blue Sky held its annual ceremony at headquarters. Isabella was there, not expecting an award, just attending as part of the senior crew. Halfway through, the CEO took the stage. "This year we're introducing a new recognition, the Flight Crew Integrity Award, for teamwork that exemplified professionalism, respect, and growth." The slide behind him changed. 2 names appeared. Captain Isabella Morales. Flight Attendant Tara Henderson. Applause thundered. Tara's jaw dropped. She glanced at Isabella, who smiled knowingly. When they stepped on stage, the CEO said, "A captain's leadership doesn't just fly planes. It uplifts people. And sometimes, a mistake becomes a lesson that unites a team." These 2 women proved that the sky has no color, only courage. Isabella took the microphone briefly. "Every day we board with strangers. But we land together as one crew. That's what matters." Tara felt tears prick her eyes. Afterward, as they left the stage, she whispered, "You really meant that, didn't you?" Isabella smiled. "Every word." That night, as she walked to her car, Isabella looked up at the stars. Her father used to say, "Mija, don't ever let the sky tell you no." She'd carried that phrase through every rejection letter, every doubting smirk, every wait at the back. Now she was proof that the sky doesn't tell anyone no. People do. And sometimes they learn better. As she climbed into her car, she saw Tara by the terminal entrance, waving goodbye. For the first time, Tara didn't see a Latina woman in uniform. She saw her captain. And somewhere above them, silent and endless, the sky looked on, colorless, borderless, forgiving. Just the way it should be.